So I get an email the other day from Tony Bruno. Hey, did you ever see this book that you and Howard Eskin and myself and Colin Coward and a bunch of guys were in? And I'm like, yeah, I think I remember doing an interview that they put a chapter with us. And here's the book. Colin Coward, Tim Brando, Sid Rosenberg, who's now on WFAN in New York, used to do sports. There's Howard. Mitch Levy's a friend of mine, did morning sports forever in Seattle. Arnie Spanier was a national guy. Joe is on WFAN. Scott Farrell, I took over for Scott Farrell at KMBR 68 on Sports Phone 68. So when he left, he went and did Farrell on the bench. There's Van Pelt. Kevin Wheeler's a national guy. Ryan, let's see. Doug and Ryan, it's these two African-American guys that used to do a show down in Atlanta, which was very popular, was even on ESPN for a while. And Petros and Money, those guys do now shows in Los Angeles. They do sports. So Howard's like, where the hell, what is this? So let's bring Howard Eskin on now with us. Legendary WIP guy. One of the godfathers I like to call. Howard, you never saw that book, huh?
You know what? I do not remember seeing that book. I do not remember. So I probably did, but I don't remember. I mean, it just, you see things, and but I don't remember seeing it. No, I do not.
How about this, Howard? What's changed in sports talk, in your opinion, over the last 15 years?
You really want me to go after these guys?
I'd love to hear you and your opinion on this.
The simple answer is there's a lack of talent. Okay. There really is a lack of talent. It's the reason, and for many years when I started WIP, it was just a solo show, and it was fine. And then somebody had this grand idea of having two hosts. And the reason I believe that they decided to have two hosts so they could argue with one another. And before the show, it's good cop, bad cop. Before the show, all right, I'll take this side, you take this side, whether they believe it or not. And after a while, I think people know that it's bullshit, that all they're doing is just arguing with one another to try to get people annoyed on both sides, or involved. I'll say involved rather than annoyed, but you know the premise on both sides. And that was I think that was the biggest reason they decided to get co-hosts. It is it's the same thing all day. It's not. Here's the one thing, and I'm not saying that I always did it the best. I think I did it the right way.
But you were unique, Howard. You weren't, you know what makes you great? It's not about being the best on the radio. It's about being different and being unique. And that's what you are.
Well, the one thing I always believed is try to get it right. You're not always going to be right. And I've had some arguments with players where they say I didn't get it right. And I would be there to talk to them, which most people in the media now, 99% of them, don't bother to go down. Television people are a waste. To watch TV sports, you're wasting your time because they don't say anything. They don't do anything. When they give highlights, they're so short, they don't really give a good story of the game. But on talk radio, they say things and they never face the music when they criticize. I made a point, and it wasn't easy going into a locker room when I was critical, but I felt I had to do that to have respect, whether they like what I said or not. And almost all the players that I've argued with at one time understand it now. I mean, I can go down a list, whether it's coaches or players. I remember Dick Vermeil couldn't stand me at the beginning because I was honest. And then after a few years, and now we're actually good friends, and we communicate a lot, I think he understood. The one thing he said when I had him on the podcast, he said, you know what really pissed me off I didn't like the things you said, but what really pissed me off is just when you said things, they were almost always right. And I'm saying, how the hell does he get all that stuff? So going back to what I was starting to say, I tried to inform and I tried to entertain. And I think you can do both.
Yes.
And I don't think people nowadays, I don't think sports talk hosts, I mean, I give my son credit. He works hard and he's got his opinion, but I think he's kind of trapped into that sports talk, but he does a good job because he's a smart guy. And he's had it from both sides. He's been management in sports talk radio. He's been on the air in sports talk radio. So I felt you could do it both ways. You could inform and entertain. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But at least I tried to get the information, and the players and the coaches knew that. But that's not the way it is anymore. I mean, that's why radio is a dying business. It's kind of sad.
It is.
The new, because that's what got me to where I am
Howard, you
today.
And me love the business, Howard. We hate the people running the business.
Oh, the people running the business just trying to save their ass.
They're
just trying to keep their jobs. So they do whatever they have to do. It's like the company, I won't mention their name, but people will know, that I used to work for. I mean, they have financial problems. They went into bankruptcy. They have financial problems. So now they're just trying to save money. And the business model of radio just isn't the same anymore. For instance, Dan, I don't know what your expenses is, and that's not the point. And I know what my expenses are, and that's really not the point. But our expenses are far less because we broadcast, call it on the air. It's on the internet. And we don't pay those expenses.
That's
where
right.
radio has a business where they have to pay for. So their business model is they have to overprice their clients. They charge more than they deliver. They overprice it and they make you think, oh, it's great, it's great, it's great. When they podcast their shows, they don't put the commercial on the podcast. I don't know how you do it, but I put my commercials on, and they stay there forever.
Yeah.
My sponsors, the people that support me,
Yep.
They're there forever. And people go back and look at it, and the sponsorship is always there. Where that's not the business model of radio, because they can't exist with that business model and make it work. So that's part of the problem with radio. There's multiple problems with radio nowadays, and it's sad because that was my history. That was my background. That's what got me,
Howard, I
where I am today.
this because of guys like you and Bruno and Angelo. When I used to listen to you guys, you were on that old 610 stick back in the day, and I could hear you guys all the way up the Jersey coast, all the way up, and listen to you. I mean, you were on before WFAN. And just to close this up here, I mean, this is why I didn't go to WFAN, because a guy by the name of Mark Chernoff started barking with me about having a co-host. And I'm going like, I go, dude, a co-host, if I'm going to drive the boat into the iceberg, I'm going to do it. He's not going to do it for me. And so he and I never really saw eye to eye on that. And that's why I never joined FAN. I was brought up. I did a couple shows for them, but I was like, I'm not doing. Then I went up to WEEI and they tried the same thing. I'm like, I'm not doing partner radio, because I'm going to produce it. I'm going to sell it. I'm going to do everything I can, put the content together. I was taught by Randy Michaels how to do radio. And Randy's one of the greatest programmers, not maybe the most liked guy, but he taught me radio. And he's the guy that educated me how to do it. And I believed I was taught by the best. And yet, like you said, these guys were just different. And even when I talked to Angelo, I think Angelo's not on the air any longer because they don't want to pay you. They don't want to pay you.
Well, yeah.
And they don't want to pay guys like Angelo, because you guys have an opinion too, and you don't fear your bosses.
Yeah, you know what? I don't want to get too deep in it because it's not the time to talk about it. There'll be a time that I talk about it, but I got screwed. And there was no reason that they had to do what they had to do. But I was the beginning of their 400 people. They laid off 400 people. They got rid of the CEO, who was the owner, because he had to sell. They got rid of the CFO. They've got rid of the host because when their contracts come up, the sad.
Howard, did you feel embarrassed?
What's that?
Did you feel embarrassed?
Did I feel embarrassed?
Did you feel embarrassed on how they ended you and you weren't able to end?
Well, I tried to, at the time, I tried to just not say a whole lot because I tried to move on. It's difficult at first when you know what they did wasn't right.
Completely.
The management people are just trying to save their ass because they like their cushy jobs. And that's, it's just, it was wrong. But was I embarrassed? I was hurt. Embarrassed is probably not the right word. I was hurt because I put in close to 4 decades, started that radio station and into sports talk. I didn't start the station. I started the sports talk format. I was the first one to do it. And it is what it was what it was. But I was hurt that there was, I don't want to go into that they had nothing. They had some people saying things which they had no evidence that any of that stuff happened. So I just, you have to try to move on. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. I want to have fun, and I always tried to have fun. And it's just, it's kind of sad that they tried to tarnish who I was. And I've just got to work my way out. And people that know me, and I'm not a bad person. I have an opinion on the air. I'm nice to people. I do a lot of charity work for the Eagles. I've raised over $700,000 for their autism. I've raised a lot of money for leukemia, for cancer, you name it. I pick games on my website, and I charge them a nominal fee to pick games because I used to write a gambling column in the Daily
By the way,
News.
guys, the original Stone Cold Lead Pipe Lock is this dude. It is not Tony Bruno, and I love Tony Bruno, but it is Howard Eskin. That is him.
Wait a minute. I have a trademark that is mine. Stone Cold Mortal Lock is my trademark in the government office of trademarks and copyrights. It took me 5 years to get it, but I got it, and it's my trademark. And if anybody wants to use it, they're going to have to pay me for it. Now, I would only donate the money to charity, but on my website, the money that I raise, I donate to 2 SPCAs in my township. And, because it just everybody wants to make money, but do I need it? Hey, they need it more than I need it. I've had a lot of success, and it's just,
I love it. And I love it.
I just try to do what I do. And, and I have an opinion. I was on a podcast, the New York Giants podcast last week. The guy asked me to come on, and I told a story about Russell Wilson. I'm sure that'll have repercussions because he's a fraud and he's a phony and he's an overrated quarterback. He what's the term he used for himself? He uses one word, guaranteed, or some stupid whatever. That's Charles, guaranteed. What does he use? But whatever. He's done some things, and he had a great defense, which gave him great field position with Seattle. And he's a good quarterback.
And
I'm not saying he's not.
Lynch.
Yeah, right. But he's not a Hall of Famer. And I'm not even a word. Unlimited. Was it unlimited? Yeah.
Unlimited.
Yeah. Okay. So, so I told the story, and I'm sure it made some headlines, but the Giants are going to die with him. He can't be the starting quarterback and they have any success. But I told the story, and it's the truth. And if he wants to deny it, he can deny it. But I don't know him personally. I guess in news conferences or in news briefings or whatever, at the locker, I've probably spoken to him, and not one-on-one, but anyway, I brought that up, and I say, hey, you know what? Some people might say something to me. I remember when I had Herm Edwards on, we talked about the miracles in the Meadowlands for the Eagles, for people around the country. Herm Edwards was the first one in 78. That was his second year in the league, when Joe Pisarcik had to listen to the coach, who's stupid, just kneeling the ball. But whatever, that was the first one. Brian Westbrook, the touchdown on a punt return with like a minute and change left, won another game, and then Deshaun Jackson on the last play of the game. But after the game, and the Giants PR guy, who's no longer with the Giants, he's now with Cleveland, he called me up the next day because I had been told by a player sitting maybe one or two lockers away from Matt Dodge, who was the punter, that he says, "I'm going to cut your ass right now." So, I mentioned that on the air the next day, and the guy called up, and obviously Tom Coughlin changed his mind. They go, "Oh, he never said that." I said, "Hey, listen, the guy was sitting right there in the locker room." So, but those are the kind of things, if I have it, I roll with it. And, you get through it. And it's just, I've said some things which have caused me some angst in whatever way you say that word. But that's just, sometimes you gotta do what you think is right.
Were you in Tom Bigby's office, sitting there with the guy with the light? I can imagine Howard talking to some dude from from Cherry Hill, and all of a sudden the light goes off, because back then these guys had some psychotic rule, or he did, that you couldn't talk to a guy for more than a minute and its light would come on.
2 minutes. Yeah,
2 minutes. The WIP. I can't believe, there's no way you followed that 2-minute drill.
Well, no, but there's sometimes when to hold them and when to fold them.
Yeah.
Okay. And once you know when to fold them, you got to fold them. And you just can't go on and on because you're trying to be a nice guy. But no, it's just Tom was a different man. Rest in peace. Was a different kind of guy. And I argued with him, and it's just, but he knew me, I knew him, and he knew I was always trying to do the best thing. And I was always trying to do the right thing, but I was always trying to do the best thing.
Howard, are you still proud right now of WIP? Of where the station is right now, excluding your son? Are you proud of where it is? Because Angelo, he hates it right now. He says that it's just not the same what it used to give Philly. I mean, holding people accountable like Rob Thompson or what have you for a bad game, or holding a pitcher in too long. Do you like where it is?
Wow, that's a tough question to answer. I don't like what WIP is right now because it's boring. Yeah, most of the day. I can't say it's all boring. Again, I'm going to defend my son because he's a sharp guy, not a kid anymore, although he wants to be a kid.
I like Spike, actually.
Yeah, I can't call him Spike because I never named him Spike. But so, I'll just say my son. And I won't. Everybody, I think, knows his real name, but it's not a big deal. But most of and I think there's some good people on the station. I'm not going to identify, other than my son, the people that I think are good or bad. Someday I will. I mean, there's some really, really boring times on that radio station between 6 and 6. But no, what was your original question? Am I proud?
Do you like where IP is right
Well,
now?
no. Okay. First of all, I don't hate you. I try not to use the word hate because it's a negative energy. Do I dislike? Do I not? I don't respect the management because of the way they handle things and the way they handle it now. And there's a lot of kiss asses there. I don't like where they are. I don't think they're really good enough anymore. And that's why the radio business, and they're not the only ones. Trust me, they're not the only ones. But I think WFAN still does, for the most part, a pretty good job. I don't listen to them a lot, but from what I've heard, I like Boomer. I like Tiki. I mean, it's just got to know Tiki. I mean, I like different guys. I liked Craig Carton when he was there. I knew Craig. Craig's a different guy, but he's a
we're very good friends.
He's a very talented guy.
Yep.
He's a very talented guy. I knew him when, obviously he worked at WIP at one point. I got to know him. So, but they're just not, they're not the same. Let's put it this way. They're not the same, which means they're not as good as they used to be. And in my opinion, they're not good enough. If they didn't have the Eagles play-by-play and the
No
Phillies
doubt.
play-by-play, they'd be a rumor.
And the Phillies. I'll tell you one thing I've learned, Howard. I don't care who you put behind the mic, and when you put great people like you, when you put people like Angelo, you put some great folks on that airwaves, you're always going to resonate, no question. But I think the fans here, Boston, places like that, they make that radio station. I mean, the interaction and the passion that the Philly sports fans have for their sports teams, especially the Eagles, is second to none. It's just second to none.
Yeah. Well, you've got three cities that are crazy: Philadelphia, Boston, and New York. And I guess maybe you could throw Chicago in there. Chicago, you can throw them in there too, because they're passionate. And the rest of the places, they're passionate fans around the country, but nothing like probably those cities that you can compare to those cities. And the people, I mean, I just go out every day. Everybody wants to have a discussion with them, and or they want to have a discussion with you. And I was talking to somebody at a business where I purchased something, and the guy asked me about the Phillies. And somebody asked me about them today. I said, I think they're going to break your heart again. I think they're going to break your heart again. And they don't want to hear that. They don't want to. They don't want to hear that. I don't like their lineup. They have trouble scoring without home runs. I just saw a video of Pete Rose explaining the way he used to approach the game. Obviously, when you have 4,256 hits, you're making contact. And if you make contact, you're going to get hits. You know, these morons in baseball would say, well, a strikeout's the same as an out. No, it's not. You got to put the ball in play. Anything can happen. But he talked about the different approach, and now people are worried about launch angle and exit velocity. I don't want to. When I hear that from an announcer, I was talking to Chip Carey, and he doesn't use it. He tries not to use it most of the time, the exit velocity and launch angle, because people don't care. Hey, did he hit a home run? Did he make an out? If he hit a line drive, you knew he hit it hard. Do I have to know how many miles an hour he hit it? No, I do not need to know that. First of all, it's not easy to hit a baseball, but it's easier to hit it harder and higher if that's what you're doing. If you're swinging up, I don't know how you hit breaking balls doing that, because the bats are harder. They're pressed, where guys used to have, and younger people don't remember this, they used to put bones on the bat rack, actually meat bones, to have to bone the bat to make it hard. Now they press them so hard, the baseballs are harder. The core is different. I had somebody cut open the core of a baseball. That's different. It's like a little Super Bowl inside there. So the baseballs are livelier. The bats are harder. And so what? And the other joke, I love these guys. Well, he's throwing 97. Oh, he hit 100. When Nolan Ryan pitched, and I'll use Dwight Gooden and J.R. Richard, and you have all these pitchers that threw hard, the velocity was clocked at home plate. Now the velocity is clocked when it comes out of the pitcher's hands. So obviously it's going to be maybe a couple of miles an hour faster. What does that all mean? If guys can throw hard today, that's great. But this 100-mile-an-hour nonsense. Nolan Ryan probably threw 100 miles an hour 60% of the time.
But Ryan would throw 180 pitches in a game and go 9.
Yeah.
Guys are going 5 2/3 today. And like you said about the Phillies, I'll say this to you, Howard. Kyle Schwarber is exactly the makeup of that team. It's not Bryce Harper, because this guy's a 216 hitter. He's going to hit you 46 home runs, and he's going to take 250 walks of shame. And that's going to be the end of those guys in the postseason, because what does Dave Dombrowski always fail when he's in Detroit or he's in the Marlins? Bullpen. Their bullpen will fail them again when they get into a tight series. And once the Dodgers get a little healthier again, the Dodgers are going to blow them away in the NLCS. They're just, or maybe even the Padres.
Yeah, I don't like their bullpen, and I don't like their lineup.
No, I don't like Schwarber. He's too high in the lineup.
Yeah, well, with him hitting leadoff was a joke. I remember Rob
You
Thompson
have
said
a
to me once,
216.
I had him on the air one time, and I wanted Stott, Turner, Harper at the top of
That's
the order.
right. That's
And
right.
I didn't want Schwarber.
Why are
He
you
says,
paying?
"Oh, we got to the World Series with Schwarber." I said, "How'd that work out for you? You lost the World Series. Yeah, you got it. You got to hit with men on base."
Well,
And
how about
and Bryce
how,
Harper was a great player. He's a good player. He's a very good player now, but he's hitting 250 something, and he swings for home runs. And he's such a violent swing. I think that's why he gets hurt. It's too bad. But there's 6 more years that the Phillies have him under contract.
it's halfway
And
through it?
yeah, and I, I don't know how he fits in that lineup right now, where he is at number 3. Once in a while, they put him at number 2. Schwarber should hit 4 or 5.
That's
That's
right.
where Schwarber should hit. And
You
you
think,
hope you get men
you
on
think
base.
Bryce Harper has been a success in Philadelphia? You think he's lived up to that $330 million 13-year contract? Like you said, halfway through it.
Well, Trey Turner hasn't lived up to his $300 million contract.
Completely.
We never realized he was a below average defensive player. Great guy. He'll hit for average. He'll hit some home runs. I wouldn't call he's not a home run hitter. But so he hasn't lived up to that contract. Well, Bryce, so up until this year, I think Bryce Harper, which is average money per year, has probably lived up to the contract. But now you have 6 more years. So you'll determine that after this year, you have 6 more years. And I just don't know. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer right now. Matter of fact, my opinion is he's got 345 home runs. He won't have 400 by the end of next season. Will not have 400 home runs by the end of next season. And 400 home runs doesn't get you into the Hall of Fame. I had a debate with a Phillies fan, and he says, "Oh, Bryce Harper's a Hall of Famer." I says,
No way.
"Tell me why." Well, 2 MVPs. I says, "Okay." Won a World Series. I said, "No, he didn't. Washington won the World Series after he left." He says he drives in 100 runs every year. So I pulled out my phone and I looked it up, and I said, "Gee, with the Phillies, and now what's this? The 7th year with the Phillies? 7th year.
He's halfway through.
Okay. He's only driven in 100 runs once with the Phillies.
Yeah,
with Washington, he only drove in 100 runs once with Washington. Now, is he a very good player? Yes, he is.
Yes.
Is he still a very good player? He's a good player, and you can't take that away from what he's done. But
it's Neil Murphy.
He's played a lot of years, and he'll have numbers at the end. But I just don't know will he ever drive in 100 runs again? I'm not so sure that's going to happen. Are you a Hall of Famer when you only drive in 100 runs twice? I looked at Dave Parker's numbers, and it's sad. It took him 20 years to get into the Hall of Fame. That's a disgrace.
3-time batting champion too.
Yeah, was a 3-time batting champion.
3-time batting champion, MVP too, by the way.
Yeah, and he was an MVP in an All-Star game as well. So he hit over 300. I believe it was 5. No, I think it was 6 or 7 times. I think Bryce Harper has 4 or 5 times. Parker's driven 100 runs in more than Harper will. The MVP, and it took him 20 some years. But now there's so few players that are really deserving.
Yeah.
Of what we think of as Hall of Famers. He'll get a lot of juice because there'll be a lot of attention from the media for that. But it's still a long way away. He's going to play at least 6 more years.
Absolutely. Howard, let me
this year.
ask you some Eagle questions here. I want to ask you a couple here. How do you know that Zach Bond is not a one-year wonder?
Well, you don't, but seems like a really hardworking. If you play football, you better work hard, or you won't be around very long. I don't know that he's a one-year wonder. You wonder when you get a player and you say, "Wow, where did he come from?" And all of a sudden, the way their defense is built, he really fit in well. So is he a one-year wonder? I'm not sure, but I think he's a good player. So will he have the same year he had last year? I don't know. It'd be hard to duplicate. It's going to be hard for Saquon Barkley to have the same year. It's going to be hard for a lot of players to have the same year. Their offensive line is the best in the NFL, but they haven't had injuries. I mean, Lane Johnson was injured for a little bit, and he's getting older. But other than that, they have pretty much young players on the offensive line. Landon Dickerson is a great offensive lineman. However, he's always hurt, but he plays hurt. I give him credit. He plays hard. He's a tough son of a gun. But so they have a great offensive line. They have two great wide receivers. They have a great running back. And all that makes the quarterback better. Is he good? Yeah. Is he top 5? No. But all the other things, the offensive line, the running game really makes him better. The wide receivers, but you still have to throw the ball to him. But the defensive line is really good because I think Jordan Davis might take another step. And obviously Jalen Carter's good. I think Nolan Smith, watch, if he stays healthy, Nolan Smith could be a really good player.
Why do people, do you think, have a problem when you tell the truth? You know, I agree with you, Howard, that most people want to be lied to instead of talking the truth to them because that's controversy. You know, I've heard what controversial on the radio is. You know what it was? Telling people the truth because nobody wants to hear the truth. They'd rather be lied to because it's an easier form of reaction. And so I understand that. You'd rather be lied to. So when you make this comment that you don't think Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback, but he fits into exactly what they're doing, just like Troy Aikman. Troy Aikman's not a top 10 NFL quarterback, but he won 3 Super Bowls. Why do people in Philly have a cow with that? When you say
you know what,
a top 5 guy,
because fans fall in love with their heroes, and you can't tell them what they don't want to hear, because if they don't want to hear it, they want to think. I mean, you tell me how he's a top 5 quarterback. Tell me how he's a top 5 quarterback. I just, you look at the teams. All right, you go. I mean, Jim Kelly, Patrick Mahomes, right? I'm just trying to think. Joe Burrow. Is Joe Burrow better than Jalen Hurts? I would think so, right?
Josh Allen's better. Joe Burrow's better. Lamar Jackson's better. Patrick Mahomes is better. Those are better quarterbacks than Jalen Hurts. You could even make the argument that you're talking about a guy like Justin Herbert's a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts from a physical set. He is.
I'll tell you, he might be this year with Jim Harbaugh. I don't know Jim Harbaugh that well.
No, you're right on with him. You're right on.
But he understands the quarterback position, and he will make the quarterback better. I think he will make the quarterback better.
Dak's better than him?
Who?
Dak. Better than Jalen. Do you think he's better than Jalen, Dak Prescott, as a quarterback in the NFL?
You're not going to like my answer. No. And Dak Prescott is one of the all-time frauds in the NFL. His numbers come when they're behind.
Okay.
He doesn't win big games. He's a turnover machine.
Okay.
He doesn't win big games. He's a turnover machine. And when they get behind, he throws a lot. You see all these numbers and you say, wait a minute, how did he get all these numbers? They just lost because they're behind a lot. It's just.
And how did he get $60 million, Howard?
Because Jerry Jones, had a man crush on him. That's what it was. Oh, Dak Prescott, he's my guy. So he gave him 60. That was the worst contract was Watson. One of the worst contracts was Dak Prescott. I think he's a stone cold fraud. Doesn't win big games, not going to win playoff games. They'll never, that's by the way, for those people that don't know to get the 5 letters, NEVER. You never win a Super Bowl with Dak Prescott. Never get to the Super Bowl with Dak Prescott. NEVER.
I'm stealing that. Howard, do you think that Jalen's better than the quarterback in Washington, Jaden Daniels?
It's interesting you said that. And if you listen to the Herm Edwards show when I had Herm on the podcast. He loves Jaden Daniels. He had him. Well, one of the things he had him his first 2 years in Arizona State.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't say it because he was on knowing it was a Philadelphia guy. I would say what you think, but it sounded like he wanted to say he's going to be better than Jalen Hurts. It sounded like he wanted to say that, but he didn't say that. So I'm not going to say he did, but he loves him. Washington gives the Eagles the biggest challenge. The Eagles are a very good team, and the Eagles are, no question, a good enough team to get back to the Super Bowl, but it's hard to get back. They didn't have a lot of injuries last year, so that you have to hope for very little injuries, but it's Washington's going to be a challenge. It's too bad because that owner is a jerk. And he's ruined the 76ers, but he hired bad people. In Washington, he's actually got good people making decisions. So there's a difference there. But he's going to be very good. Is he better than Jalen Hurts now? You can't say after his rookie year he's better.
Yeah, only 1 year. I got one last question for you. And you're probably better to ask this than when I asked this to Angelo. Angelo had a funny response to this question. I want to see where you go with it. So I asked, what in the hell happened to hockey in Philly? What in the world has happened? Angelo said this, hockey never really was anything in this city. They just loved that team. Is he right?
That's a big part of it, but they won. And they got, back in the 70s, they created this great image of winners and champions when they got and won Stanley Cup. But you had personalities. You had Bernie Perrant. Bobby Clark was a quiet guy, but Bobby Clark was Bobby Clark. But you had Rick Tocchet, who's now obviously the head coach. Oh. You had players there, Jeremy Roenick at one time, but hockey players were personalities. Now, there's a lot of basketball players that are foreign or from foreign countries, but hockey, it's hard to relate to a lot of the players,
right?
Because you've really never seen them come through to get there. At least college basketball and football players, you got to know them a little bit. You get to embrace them a little bit. But I think it's just foreign players. But hockey, nobody cares about hockey until the playoffs. And it's when they're good, that's kind of a shame. And I think the Flyers will be a championship team before the Sixers. Now, it's not going to be anytime soon. The Sixers are still 3 to 4 years away from being 3 to 4 years away from being 3 to 4 years away. Yeah, but I think Danny Briere and Keith Jones really know what they're doing, and they're going to do the right thing. But people don't embrace it. You have that hardcore cult following for hockey, and that's just what it is. But I think because they won championships, people embraced them. And Bernie Perrant was an idol. It just
I loved him.
And those guys, and back you had Dave the Hammer Schultz.
And then
just beat people up. He just beat people up.
I loved that team growing up and the great Islander rivalries. I tell people this: when I was a kid growing up, every year I was in high school, the Islanders won the Stanley Cup, and those Flyers would roll in Ranger games. Those things were just absolutely awesome. Howard, who do you have scheduled coming up on the podcast?
I'm working on a couple of people, so I can't really say anything right now, but my next podcast will be Wednesday night at 7:30. Working on a couple of people. Schedules in the summer, obviously, a little more difficult, but I'm working on a couple of people. But whatever it is, I'm going to try to make it, as I always do, try to make it good.
Let me know. I can hook you up with some folks too. Just let me know, because
hey, listen, send me some names, and I'm always...
will. I will. Oh, hey, Howard, you're one of the very few people that I could do Angelo. I would send those numbers to. I've got 5,000 numbers in my phone, so you need anything, you let me know, or I know them, and I will hook you up, because I watch your podcast, and I got the idea of getting Herm on. I had Herm on my Tampa radio show a couple days ago, and we were talking about his time in Tampa when he was there. Get this, on the coaching staff, they had Lovie Smith, they had Mike Tomlin, They had him. They had Tony Dungy. And they all started in Kansas City first. Then they went over to Tampa. I mean, Herm is one of the absolutely – you could sit and listen to him for hours talking.
It's great. His press conference, the news conference that he had when he went off that one time, I didn't realize it until he told me on the show, we won the division. He said the Jets won the division that year. I thought they were so bad a team that they weren't.
No.
It's just – some of the things.
Win the game.
Wait, you forgot something. When you say, if you tell Herm, you kind of repeat what he said. You play to win the game. Hello. You got to have the hello in there. There's a pause and he says hello.
I love it. So Wednesday at what time again, Eastern?
7:30 Eastern time.
You got it.
But it lives forever, as we all know. They all
absolutely. Thank you so much, man. I love just chopping it up with you, man. It's really awesome, and I hope we get to do it again. And, hey, by the way, there you go. We were in a book together. I didn't even know it until Tony Bruno sent me that thing. So, I mean, hey, all good. Thank you so much, Howard.
Oh, hey, thank you. And Tony's great. I love Tony. Tony and I worked together when he was a teenager.
Where?
WFIL Radio. He did news updates at which was a top 40 station, and I was spinning records for George Michael and a guy named Jim O'Brien. People know George Michael from the George Michael Sports Machine when there were records, when there were 45s.
Wait a second. So during the, I know Rocky, so Stallone's a Miami Hurricane. So let me ask you this: when they were filming Rocky, was that the station? Did they say WIP when he said in the movie? Were you on the air when that movie in 77? Were you on the air in 77 when that movie?
No, I did the first WIP. I was on the air in 77 at 1210 Radio, which I replaced Joe Banner there, who was a sports reporter, believe it or not. And then I went to an FM station in 79 to 82 at an FM station doing sports talk. And then I went into TV for the first time in my life.
So there was no format. There was no format at all.
It was news. It was news, music, and like a loose form of music talk at WIP. 86, the general manager there was a general manager of two stations. It was Metro Media, and he wanted to make it a sports talk station. So I went to the Fox station, only did a 10 o'clock news. He says, would you do sports talk in the afternoon? Because I had done it before and it was successful. And I said, sure. So, because I only did a 10 o'clock news. So I did it in the afternoon. August 29th, it's coming up. The anniversary's coming up. August 29th, 1986 was the first sports talk show ever on WIP. Before WFAN.
That's right.
But we weren't full-time before WFAN.
Wow. And that's right, because FAN went from WNBC to FAN.
In 87 is when they went to full-time sports talk. We had parts of the station once I started doing sports talk, but I did the first one, and just, I'll never forget that.
Pete Franklin.
No, they asked me to fill in for him when I think he had a heart attack, but I never met him. They asked me to fill in for him. But I never. He
worked in Cleveland, got a job at FAN, and then he worked with me when I was at KMBR 68 out in San Francisco. He did mid mornings, and I had worked with him at KMBR with Gary Radnich and those guys.
Never met him. Met him.
Well, Howard, you I mean, of all the guys on the East Coast, you and Francesa have to be. I mean, I can't think of anybody in Boston that started with, like, during your time. It would have to be you. Was there a guy named Richards that was on the air too at WIP back in the day? Richardson, was there a guy like that?
I don't remember him.
Or Hendrickson, something like that, that was in the middays that you guys had who passed away. Steve something. I forget his name.
You know what? I forget, but I'll never forget. Never forget those days. It was fun. It obviously was what launched.
Did you know what you were doing? I mean, did you know that one day?
Well, I did. Remember, I did at an FM station before I went to WIP.
Steve Fredericks, that's the name. Steve Fredericks, I met.
Oh, yeah, Steve Fredericks. Yeah, Steve Fredericks was there, and may he rest in peace. So, I mean, there was, And I was competing against Steve when I worked on the FM station and he worked on the AM station. And I kicked his ass after a year and a half, and that pissed him off too.
Man,
So hey, listen, I did it the way I did it. I learned on the way through it. I did a lot of things. I broke when I went to television in '82, 3 months after TV, I broke a big story about Leonard Toast being forced to sell the Eagles because of gambling problems. I mean, there's a whole list of things, but it's all good.
What's your biggest accomplishment, Howard, on the radio, you think? What's the number one, if you had to talk about your career? And I love this talk, man. I mean, I'm learning so much about you. I mean,
you know what?
Biggest
I prided myself, Dan, on it was a sense of accomplishment to break stories. And even you didn't find many radio people that broke stories, especially in sports. You didn't find many TV people that broke stories. But I guess that was my biggest, the pride I took on breaking stories on both radio.
So was it relationships? Was it the relationships that you had?
Yeah, well, because you got to know people and you would get people that would understand. They could tell you things and you wouldn't dime them out. And certain things you couldn't say. Hey, listen, you can't, it's off the record. You can't say anything. And I didn't, but at least I had a background so I could research some things and do it. I've done, I think it's a little over 8,000 sports talk shows in my life. I don't think, matter of fact, I'm almost positive there's nobody in this country, because you don't work long enough, that I've done 8,000 shows. Nobody. But I take pride in that. So when you say, and the fact that I still have fun, the reason I'm doing what I'm doing now with podcasts is because I have fun doing it. But if you're not having fun, you're not trying hard enough.
Well,
so
I'll put it in perspective there. When you say you've done 8,000, if you're on the air for 10 years and you're fortunate enough, you do a morning show. I was on the air 15 years doing mornings in Florida and Tampa and in Jacksonville and Atlanta. And I did it for 15 years. And I'll tell you this, you do about 220. Okay. You do about 220 shows a year, counting holidays, weekends, and what have you. I mean, for me, 230 shows. I mean, possibly that I've done like in a 10-year, I've probably done about $2,000. And I've not been on the air near as long as you. And I mean, $8,000, that is some number, man.
Well, and the thing is, I don't think I did what I should have done. I didn't take a lot of vacation because I felt like it was important to keep the ball rolling if the ball was rolling. And so I didn't take a lot of vacation.
Yep.
I worked a lot of shows, and so that's where it comes from. It's just, I worked a lot of years. Think about that. Before WIP screwed me, I had, that would have been like coming up in August, 86. That's 39 years coming up in August. Would have been 39 years. 39 years at WIP.
Wow.
That's pretty, I can't believe I can't believe.
You know what though? Can I tell you a story about somebody that I know who knows a little bit about the story? And I'm not going to say anything and we'll end it here. What I understood was that what hurt you the most was how loyal you were to people who all of a sudden turned out not to be loyal to you anymore.
Well,
that what I heard was the problem at the end, that you were protecting certain people, and those people.
Well, for all I did,
on you.
For all I did for that radio station and the people that are in place now, I didn't hire them, but whatever. Loyalty is not a big part of America anymore. I'll just say America. Forget about the business. And that's just not the radio. It's not just the broadcast business. It's loyalty is just not the same as it used to be. And they don't care. They only care about themselves. They have no heart and no soul. And not everybody. I'm not talking about everybody in the business. There are people just trying to save their jobs, their cushy jobs, can get the free trips and free this and free that. And oh yeah, I run the radio station and I do this and I run this department. Yeah, the hell with all that. That's all bullshit. There's got to be loyalty somewhere, and it just doesn't exist as much anymore. And that's a big part of the problem. But I'm proud that I worked, and I did it the right way. I think I did it the right way, and I accomplished a lot. So you move forward. It was Troy Aikman introduced me to Terry Bradshaw the first time. I interviewed Terry one time. I mean, he doesn't remember. Obviously, it was years ago. And Troy Aikman says, "Terry, this guy's a legend." I said, "Please, I'm just like everybody else. I grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up in the neighborhood. It was called Northeast Philadelphia. And I was just like everybody else. I was a guy that loved sports, and I just made it a career. That's all. No more, no less."
Well, let me give you a Jerome Brown story about you. let me give you a Jerome story. So I guess I didn't know this until Keith Byers told me, and the guys told me, they go, so I guess somehow Keith Byers was working on a deal for offensive tackle by the name of Jim Lachey. And they were trying to bring him to the Eagles because they needed O-line help. And I guess Buddy threw a fit on the whole thing because he said, yeah, the yachtsman, the Frenchman, or he called him something, the Frenchman, the guy in France, he doesn't want to do anything. Jerome said,
yeah, that was Norman Brayman, who had a home in France. Yeah.
He goes, Eskin's on the air going, this guy, this owner, he'll never build that team. That owner, he cares about being in France more than he cares about being in Philly. And Jerome used to tell me all the time how you would go knee deep in that guy because it was always Buddy. Buddy was ripping him. Yeah, the guy in France.
You know what was hard to do about that, Dan? You know what was hard to do?
What's that?
I was friends with his nephew, who was a neighbor of mine. One of my best friends was his nephew. And he buddied up to me. Hey, the other kid's name was Howard. Yeah, your buddy. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. And he didn't like it when I dined him out for not paying city wage tax. I dined him out for a lot of things. He said his office was outside of Philadelphia, which never really existed. So I got him on that. I actually had copies of the tax returns. I forget how I got them.
Oh my God. You're going full PMZ on them.
Oh yeah. Right. But whatever. It is what it is.
You need to write a book, dude. You need, Angelo did one. You need to write a book.
I gotta find a writer. I gotta find a writer. That's what I got to do.
That book, man, it would be enormous.
There's a lot of stories.
Absolutely. What is it? 50 years of sports stories.
Oh yeah, it'll be. Well, I've been in the business 50 years. Yeah.
Oh my God Almighty, Howard! It is always awesome. Don't forget, 7:30 Eastern, the new show will drop. Howard Eskin's show podcast will drop on Wednesday. I loved it, man. Thank you so much for the time, dude. I appreciate it, and I'm here for you anytime you need me.
All right. Thanks, brother.
I got into this business because of you. You're one of the guys that I got into the business for, man, and I appreciate you very much. Thank you, Howard.
We both have a mutual friend in Jerome Brown, and may he rest in peace, too.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. I love it. By the way, let me show you this last thing here. So look at this. So the city of Brooksville sent me this. And on the back here, got all the numbers of the holes, and here are the players that have signed this. I've got Clyde Simmons, Seth Joyner, Andre Waters, Keith Jackson, and all the guys have signed this. In the city of Brooksville, where Jerome was from,
right? Yep.
Sent this to me and gave me this, and it was for the Jerome Brown Golf Classic on the back here. You can see it there.
Yep.
And I played with Jerome, obviously, at the University of Miami.
Yep.
And so it was a lot of fun. Yeah, he loved playing for Philly. He loved that parking lot you guys had because he would take his Suzuki Yamaha motorcycle and go 100 miles an hour in that parking lot. And he used to drive Jeff Fisher and everybody crazy because Jerome was so reckless in that parking lot. God rest his soul. But yeah, he was a nut in that parking lot with the cats hanging down, falling down, the rats in the place. I've been in that joint, man, that back in the day, that vet.
Yeah, we'll make the rats your friends. That's all.
Howard, thank you, my friend.
See ya.
You got it. Howard Eskin. What a fun time. That was absolutely fantastic. It really is, man. I mean, you talk about truly one of the great godfathers of sports talk radio. Think about this, too. Like I said, everyone always assumes that WFAN in New York was like the first 24-hour sports station. Dude, Howard was the first guy in 86 to put it all together. And WIP, in my opinion, has always been a better radio station than WFAN. I listened to IP more than I listened to WFAN, and I lived in the New York area. I was raised in the New York area. All right. Got to take a time out here. My great friends at Morgan & Morgan, folks. We love our friends at Morgan & Morgan with over $30 billion recovered. They are the #1 injury law firm in all of America. That's right. Family here in Pennsylvania got $30 million in recovery when an insurance company wanted to come in and only give them $650K. Absolutely no way. Or a family down in Florida, they only were awarded $350K. Well, guess what? Morgan & Morgan went in with their team and they got themselves $12 million in recovery. If you're ever injured, please do me a favor and contact my friends at Morgan & Morgan by forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Sil sent you.